Ange Postecoglou and Erik are two managers who come under a lot of criticism so far this season, and I think this game was the perfect opportunity for both managers to go out there and make a statement. And I think Ange did exactly that, as the side went to Old Trafford and dominated Manchester United 3-0, and I think for Erik potentially the vultures are now circling. And there'll be a lot of talk about Erik and Manchester United, but I think firstly what I really want to do is give a lot of credit to Tottenham Hotspur, because I thought on the day they were absolutely phenomenal, being without their captain Heung-min Son and potentially even their best player. I thought there was a chance that they could potentially struggle, but I think from the very first second in this game, they were on it, they were on the front foot, and they looked to go out there and really take it to Man United, and that's exactly what they did. And within 3 minutes, Spurs found themselves 1-0 up, and I was still making my cup of tea. I couldn't believe it how fast Spurs had started in this game. And it all started with Marcus Rashford losing the ball. And I think, you know what, we've seen a lot of criticism for a lot of these Man United players. But I think if we're going through all the goals through the entire match, it was a collective disappointment for Man United. But I think some of the Spurs players were fantastic. And firstly, Mickey van de Ven, because you can see in this position here, he's got Marcus Rashford running at him, he's got Alejandro Garnacho just behind him, and what does he do? He anticipates Marcus Rashford taking that touch, and he ends up making a heavy touch, making it easier for van de Ven, and he ends up taking it with him. But what he does with it is absolutely phenomenal, because he gets his head up, and he's immediately thinking, right, where am I taking this ball, where am I going to pass it? But then he just sees all that space in front of him. He's got Timo Werner down to the bottom of the screen on the left-hand side, hugging the touchline, and thinks to himself, yeah, okay, I've got that easy pass. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a run into that Man United defence, through between the right back and the right centre-back, and I'm just going to see what they do. Try maybe draw a man, and then maybe pass it to Werner. But the thing is, what Man United don't do is that no one presses him, no one gets any close to him, and they invite Van de Ven to go forward, and that's exactly what he does. And you can see it even better here. The space between Mazraoui and Matthias de Ligt is just way too big. Man United were too expansive, trying to counter-attack them, which is actually something we've seen so far in the season and last season as well, that they're very open and they really try to go for it, which leaves them vulnerable if they were ever to be counter-attack on the counter. And so you can see Mazraoui's marking Werner. He doesn't expect Mickey van de Ven to run into that Man United defence. And what I really want to highlight, top of the screen, on the halfway line, you've got Diego Dallo in that left back position, and he's way too advanced. He's really gone for it. And you've got Brennan Johnson. And you know what? There's maybe half a metre between them. But as we go through the stills, watch how that space gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's actually really poor defending from Dallo as well. But what I think Man United should be doing here? Well, I've actually got to look at Manuel Ugarte. I think he should recognise the fact that, you know, Mazraoui is maybe marking Timo Werner. I think Mazraoui's position is far too wide. He definitely needs to tuck into the back line, because you can't just have both fullbacks bombing on. But I think, you know, either Mazraoui has to go back in and be a bit tighter to it, or I think Ugarte's got to go into that back line and fill in for him. But neither of them do that, and I think it's really poor defending all around. And honestly, it's criminal that Mickey van de Ven has been able to get to the edge of the Man United box, and still no player has made a challenge on him just yet. And I can see Timo Werner's whole job was just to be a distraction. He was going to keep the width, he was going to try and draw a man out, and, you know, van de Ven obliged. And so he got him away all the way into the box, and yeah, you can see it from the just above me on the very far right hand side. You still got there Brennan Johnson and Diego Dallo. That gap has opened up a little bit more, and the fact that I think what's so bad is Dalot doesn't smell the danger. At some point, every single one of the Man United players thinks, you know what, someone's going to deal with this, someone's going to do this, and they don't. And then you think to yourself, okay, I need to get myself back in a decent position if you're Dalot, but at no point does he think to himself, right, this is a serious threat. And you know, it's too easy for Spurs, and I think for Man United it's so poor. And the question I have for everyone watching in the comments, what other centre-back in world football can take up the ball like he did, you know, in their own half, dispossessing an attacker, and then drive with it through the entire opposition defence and midfield, and then end up in a position where they put in a really good ball? I mean, even if the ball didn't end up at Brennan Johnson's feet, it could have easily ended up at Solanke's, where they completely take out the entire opposition defence. And I think to myself, you know, maybe, I don't know, Rudiger sometimes ventures forward, but not like this, not like Mickey van de Ven did in this position. And I think, you know, the pass, the run, the strength, I think everything was absolutely world class, and Mickey van de Ven deserves a huge amount of credit because he created this goal. Yes, Spurs were very up for it right from the very first minute, but this goal is all him, and he puts it on a tee for Brennan Johnson just to tap it in at the back post. And like I've been saying so far, look at that space between Brennan Johnson and Diego Dallo. How on earth were you almost level with him, just a little bit behind him, to the point where you're letting him get that far? I mean, he doesn't sense the danger. He doesn't look at Brennan Johnson once, and I think it's such poor defending. And It's a soft way to go 1-0 down so early on in the game as well. And if you're Spurs, you are absolutely laughing. And this is a better angle just to highlight everything I've been saying. Mazraoui should have been a lot tighter. He should have ignored Timo Werner. He should have realised, where's the danger? It's if the centre-back goes into the middle of the pitch. But really, no one's expecting Van der Ven to do that. So maybe you can understand that. But as soon as Van der Ven gets his head down, Ugarte needs to come across. I think someone needs to make a tactical foul. I know it's very early on, but... And I know it's easy to say with hindsight as well, knowing that this led to a goal, but I think someone should have done better. And at the very far post, you can see there, like Dalot is not that far away from Brennan Johnson. If he sprints, he can get there quite easily. But 3 minutes into the game, not even that, I just think it's such poor defending. And then from there, Spurs were absolutely all over Manchester United. I mean, if only Timo Werner could finish his dinner, then, he could have had a couple of more goals. Brennan Johnson hit the post from a lovely counter-attack down the left-hand side, which ended up at Kulusevski, put it to Johnson, and you know exactly what he's going to try and do, and he just narrowly didn't get in the net and hit the post. I think Spurs were dominating Man United at that point, and you can maybe even argue if it wasn't for Onana, Spurs could have won this game maybe 6 or 7. I think Spurs were absolutely fantastic. I think the fact that Timo Werner and Brennan Johnson were playing, they just kept the width so well, which allowed Maddison and Kulusevski, because Man United was so poor on the press, to get so far forward and so close to Dominic Solanke that it really allowed them just to do whatever they wanted, play in between Man United's, in between the defence and the midfield. And I thought they just, they had the way completely with Man United. And, if you thought they were bad, then obviously Bruno Fernandes gets sent off and then they've got no chance. But what I will say is I don't think it was a red card. I think if you think about where the referee was placed in this moment, he was behind Bruno Fernandes. So from his angle, I can understand maybe why he thinks it's a reckless challenge. Bruno Fernandes slips, he then catches him high up, and from where the referee is probably positioned behind Fernandes, I think he thinks, no, this is a red card, it's reckless. But I think this is where VAR should have intervened, because in my opinion, it wasn't a red card. And I know Bruno Fernandes is not a very well-liked player in the football community. I know it's quite easy to dislike him. But I think, come on, if we take our biases aside, then I think it's fair to say, this wasn't a red card. He slips, which maybe causes the tackle to be dangerous, but he doesn't catch him with the studs. I mean, this is the exact moment he makes contact with Maddison. I've slowed it down to the exact moment because I really wanted to be sure before giving my opinion. And he doesn't catch him with the studs. He catches him on the side of his boot. And then what he ends up doing is he ends up planting the foot on the ground, not making contact with any part of James Maddison whatsoever. So for me, I think you think about, yes, it's high, but it's not with the studs. And it's not going to be with a huge amount of force, because if he ended up going through Maddison, that's different. But he ends up going down towards the ground. And so for me, it's probably yellow just because it's reckless and it's dangerous. But it's not to the extent where it's serious foul play and a red card challenge. And for me, I think I have an issue with the VAR on that one. I can understand why the referee on the field gave it, but VAR not intervened to go, do you know what? That's a foul, maybe yellow. It's not that's a yellow, maybe a red. It's not an orange card kind of situation. It's in between not a foul and a yellow. So I think for me, VAR should have intervened. And I think that it's such an unfortunate moment for Bruno Fernandes. And now he's going to miss the next 3 games. So yeah, it's a bad one. But I think as a result of this, Kobe Mainoo also went off injured. I think Mason Mount came on and then he got concussed and I got taken off. So not a very good day at the office for Man United. And now without the 3 players in midfield, who are they going to start in the next game? I mean, yeah, worrying signs. And then when you go into halftime, I don't think any of us, with the way that Spurs were playing, think that Man United had a chance of getting themselves back into the game. And it turned out to be exactly that. I think Ange definitely just told his men, just go out there, do exactly the same, and we'll get our chances. And I think if you're Ten Hag, I think what you're definitely saying to the lads at halftime is, do you know what? Nothing silly. Let's keep it tight. Let's make sure that we're still in the game and keep it 1-0. And maybe we can nick something on the counter-attack or maybe from a set piece. And so to concede so early on in the second half, after you conceded so early on in the first half, oh my God, it was just abysmal. It was honestly just abysmal. And I couldn't believe what I was watching and how bad Man United were and how easy they're making it for Spurs, who were playing really, really well on the ascendancy. And they were just accepting Man United's mediocrity and going, are you really going to play this bad? And they went, okay, fine, we're just going to score. And that's exactly what they did. Casemiro came on at the beginning of the second half just to maybe consolidate a little bit more. But then immediately he gets shoved to the ball by Solanke. And then here, you can see it, and I'll show you in the next still, that Man United don't have a huge amount of cover. They've got a man sent off. They need to be safe. They need to be conservative. So the fact that Martinez now decides to, compete with this ball, which is very clearly, Dominic Solanke is favoured for it. Again, woeful defending, and Spurs were just accepting the invitation to go out there and score another goal. And it's absolutely beyond me why the Man United defenders just weren't running back towards their own goal, just trying to delay the Spurs attack and just going, okay, we're just going to get our midfielders back into a decent position. I'm going to try and make the Spurs attackers doing something. But here, when you've got Johnson and you've got Kulusevski and Martinez trying to compete for this ball, why he's not running back is, I don't know. But yeah, Spurs obliged and Johnson ran down the other end of the pitch. And Spurs just really wanted this. You've got a 5v5 at the moment, and one of the 5 Man United players is Martinez down injured. So they just went, okay, we're just going to want it. We want to score a goal, and you'll see for the next one that, they've got themselves into a scoring position. And Brendan Johnson does get a little bit lucky with the assist, but he's got so many options that he can pick out that all of them are pretty good options as well. The ball happens to find Kulusevski on the edge of the box, and I think his finish was absolutely exquisite. Because as he's in the air, he's only got one way of scoring that, and he's got to get his foot on the end of it and just put it past Onana's right-hand side into that far corner of the goal, and that's exactly what he does. So the control in the air when he's off balance, I think, it's amazing. What a goal. And then Spurs find themselves 2-0 up at Old Trafford just at the beginning of the second half, and Man United down to 10 men. And, at that point, they can do whatever they want. They could let Man United come onto them because as long as they were solid, they knew they had no chance. On the counter-attack, they had Mickey van der Ven, so there was no way that Rashford or Garnacho, anyone that they brought on, was going to match him for pace. They had the physicality as well because Joshua Zirkzee just wasn't on the pitch anymore. And I just thought to myself, yeah, Spurs absolutely had this. But of course, it wasn't enough for them. They had to go and make it 3-0 as well. And I'm seeing a lot of signs of improvement in the Spurs side. I think from open play, they're a lot better than they were last season. They haven't quite converted the chances. But I think also at set pieces, yes, the Arsenal game was an exception because they were quite bad. And I think, again, you could probably put that down to Romero's one goal for Gabriel. But I think attacking, they have improved as well. And I do think that, they were just trying to take a short corner prior to this, but the referee stopped it to allow Sarr to get himself onto the field. And in doing so, he actually, in a way, helped Spurs score this goal. And I was thinking about it, it's like, do Man United really need 2 men to stop the short corner when you're down a man anyway? So if you're 11v11, absolutely, go 2v2 on the short corner. But when you're down to 10 men, you need to have players in key positions. And, you've got to sometimes sacrifice the chance of winning the ball back in order to, make sure that you're solid at the back. So I think maybe Man United could have let Spurs take a short corner here with one man, get another man into the box to try and defend the corner if the ball were to come in. And then if they were to take it short, then you go, okay, now someone else has to go out to help him out. But then they're still at the corner flag. They're still on the side of the pitch. The danger isn't until the ball gets into the box. And that's, where Man United defend, again, really, really poorly. And I think it's actually lovely movement by Sarr in this position. His man is Casemiro. He's behind him when the ball is taken and the corner's taken. And then he ends up next to him as Bergvall kicks the ball. And he ends up in front of him. And Casemiro, who's so focused on his position and, zonally marking that area, that he just lets Sarr run into it without a challenge and just let him get a flick on. And it is such poor defending, but again, such a well-worked goal. And maybe it's something that needs to be studied, but a lot of teams now are the main focal point from corners are players on the edge of the box or very nearly on the edge of the box, and they're trying to get a run into that area. And so we see with Arsenal all the time with Gabriel. But I think here, the player who Spurs are definitely looking for is Dominic Solanke, who's a bit further back than all the Spurs attackers and also completely unmarked. And that's something that, maybe needs to have other teams need to have a closer look at and go, that's interesting. Maybe we need to have man marking players, biggest threat from a corner. And I think Solanke in this case definitely was Spurs' biggest threat, and no Man United player does anything about him. And as Sarr gets a flick on, the movement from Solanke is amazing. The way he gets in between the Man United defenders, and all of them have got a man in and around them, so they'll focus on everyone else apart from him. Diego Dalot plays everyone on side, and so it doesn't even matter. Solanke can go straight forward, and he gets a tap in just before Nana gets it. And it's a fantastically well-worked set piece to make Spurs go 3-0 up. And then you think to yourself, do you know what? Absolutely happy days if you're a Tottenham fan. And I think ever since the defeat to Arsenal in the North London derby, Spurs have come out and they've answered a lot of their credits. They've played really good, attractive football. They've got the goals that they desperately needed, and they're looking a lot better defensively as well. And so I think that for the time being, that the criticism of Ange is definitely going to be put back a bit. I think largely they do need to improve. They're now in the top half of the Premier League and doing well in the Europa League as well, beating Karabakh despite the fact they went down to 10 men. I think we need to see more of this from Spurs, but it's definitely massive improvements and positive signs for them going forward. And if you're Man United, I don't even know where to start. I think a lot of the talk will be about Erik ten Hag, how deflated he looked during the entirety of the match. I don't think he's got great charisma or personality, and he doesn't, articulate his thoughts very well. I think Old Trafford, continuously emptying out before end of games because fans don't believe and don't have hope in this team anymore, all these players. And I think, I think there's when you sack a manager and when you know you're going to sack a manager, I think if you're Ineos and if you are the people in charge of making decisions at Man United, I think this result definitely shows to you that, Erik ten Hag isn't the man to be Man United manager. But the question is, who is? So I think that is the main thing about why I think Erik ten Hag will probably keep his job for a little while. It might be only till the international break. It might be even further than that. But I think it's pretty clear for everyone to see that Erik ten Hag isn't the man for Man United and he will be sacked. I don't think he'll be manager of Man United at the end of the season. But when you choose to sack him, when you actually think you might have a decent replacement in mind, that's his own other topic. So, yeah, I think this is the end for Ten Hag. I think that was the final straw. I think the last nail in his coffin. I think he's done, but, I think he'll officially be done a bit later on. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.